Community Heart Media. Your voice, your heart, your opportunity. Welcome to tonight's show. Well, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight live on Community Heart Media. And well, hopefully shortly for Northwest FM. I must remind Mark, one of his goals for this year is to be on time and to sort out the internet. So we'll be hanging on for that one. But we have a really, really good show in store for you tonight. But so before I introduce our amazing guest, just want to see how everyone's week has been. Hello, how's your week been? How's your Wednesday going as well?
It's been good. Wednesday's been good. Actually, today's my rest day because the rest of the week I've been clamming to get information, especially from work, and catch up and that. And the weekend was actually me getting back on the bike and trying to get myself fit for a little cause I'm doing later on this year. So
tell us about this little cause, because I think you're underplaying it just a little bit.
I'm underplaying. Okay, so every year I hop on the bike in October and raise money for Kids for Cancer Foundation. So Kids with Cancer Foundation. So I do that. And that is basically going on. Hopefully next week I'll put a lad on to see what I'm doing and how my week goes and how much pain I get to put myself through.
And so how long are you planning to ride for, Julio? What's the end goal?
At this time it's 150K.
150K.
Yeah.
Wow. So as I said, you're making that sound like a light just ride, but much, much bigger. Well, we have Mark on his time zone, like I'm going to call it his time at 8:02 before I introduce our amazing guest. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Almost.
Is he ready?
Almost ready.
G'day, guys. Good to see you tonight. Hey, Melissa, great to see you here on Community Heart Radio tonight.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
We're really excited to have you tonight. The Matildas lawyer, hey? So we're going to unpack that tonight. Good to see you, Kelly. Good to see you, Julio.
Good to see you too. Mark time. Mark what time we call it.
Well, it's always a few technical things going on here at Community Heart Radio, as we know. So it always makes it a bit more tricky. But we're trying a new internet that Julio and I put together. Not sure it's the total answer, but we'll see how we're coming tonight. Julio, are you hearing me loud and clear?
Loud and clear, Mark. You sound very clear, crystal clear. So that's good.
Fantastic. Well, how's that, eh? That's great. Wow. And Melissa, great to have you tonight with us. And we're going to learn a lot tonight. And Julio's had a few problems with the law over time, so he's looking forward to getting some advice from you. And, it's going to be great hearing from you. And, of course, we're going to hear from our listeners tonight all about whatever they want to ask you. So tell us a bit about yourself, Melissa. What's your journey, I suppose, to get to where you are tonight?
Thanks so much. Amazing to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to delve into all things property law, I guess. But yeah, starting with that, it has been a journey. Starting out on my own with my conveyancing law firm called Conveyed, have had that for 2 years. So it's a baby business, is what I call it. But it's been growing from strength to strength ever since I sort of started it. It's been the best decision I've ever made, having come from private practice over the last 10 years to then stepping in and taking that leap of faith to work to start out on my own has been a big transition, but it's been a very rewarding one in so many ways.
Now, Melissa, just before you go on, I mean, a lot of people are probably in your position where they're working for a company. They sort of wouldn't mind working for themselves, but they're too scared to do it. They don't know how to do it. How did you go from that transition from working for a wage in a stable, secure job to starting your own business?
It's always scary stepping out on your own. I feel like every single one of us has at some point in our lives sort of a $1 million idea, but we've just never gone out and actioned it. It's scary. Sometimes it's isolating when you start out as well. But it starts with a passion, I think, and that was a big driver for me. I remember there was sort of towards the end of my time working in private practice in the last firm that I was at. It was a generalist law firm. I would sit there staring out of the window and thinking to myself, looking at everyone outside, thinking there has to be something more out there for me. I was just thinking that the whole time. And it was always in me for a very long time. I've always kind of wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to have that ability to dictate my day, to work my hours, and to be incentivized for that. It's something that's always appealed to me, as would be anyone else that's contemplating starting out on their own. So yeah, those thoughts plus, my passion for property, plus at that point, understanding my area of law well, knowing my service, I felt with all of those things combined, I was in a position to start out. And so I did. I took that leap of faith, and here I am.
Yeah. Hey, Julio, you've had a similar experience. Tell us a bit about your experience, because Julio's actually started his own business as well.
Oh, I went basically started doing my own thing as I found a niche market in engineering, and decided to do just to bring up a business of my own. So something I thought, take a big risk and see how it goes. Probably found the same thing, Melissa. It's really hard work at the beginning and setting it up and feeling it and getting yourself working the way that you want to work. Yep. And then pretty much developing the business. My one's a bit harder in the sense that I'm still working halfway for the government, what I used to do, which was for the military, but I'm more to side with bio engineering and bio construction. So that's my side.
Everyone's got different circumstances that they have to weigh up when they're wanting to start out on their own. I was in a position where I felt I was fortunate. I could take a couple of months off to really, nut out my business plan and get all my accounts ready to start off in my own firm. But for some other people, it's different. It might be like you, still working in a part-time capacity just to have that level of stability while you start out on your own, and that's perfectly fine.
What about you, Kel? Have you ever thought about going out and starting your own consultancy business?
Yes, I have actually. I've worked in private consulting before. So yeah, in the health sector. So in private practice, Melissa. So yeah, can very much relate to that. And did that internationally for a while. But yeah, I can definitely understand that journey, in terms of, like you said, it's a baby business. So sometimes that can be quite challenging in itself. I was going to ask you earlier, Melissa, for our community members and listeners out there, what does conveyancing and property law mean? What does that mean for all of us?
It's such a good question, because sometimes people don't know, and that's perfectly okay. I mean, the first time I stepped into the industry, I was like, what does that mean? So it's a fancy word to describe the process of doing the legal legwork to help or to transfer a property from one person to another. That's effectively what it is in a nutshell. And they describe it in one word called conveyancing. And so you have people that are professionals at that, and they're in turn called conveyancers. You've also got people like myself that are property lawyers that can do that as well.
So do you work alongside, now this may sound like a silly question, but no question is a silly question.
No silly question.
My brother is a land surveyor. And so I know he works with conveyancers and property lawyers, because particularly when you're doing, subdividing, farm mitigation, sectioning, do you work with surveyors and the likes as well?
Not too often, I have to say. We don't work too closely with surveyors, but if there is a situation where, for example, we need to lodge a plan of subdivision for someone, the surveyor will supply us with the documents that we need to facilitate that. That's just a matter of course, and but sort of outside of that, we wouldn't really.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, yeah. And how did you? Now, law is such a huge field, and I know you probably get asked this question a lot. But how did you decide, right, that's the area of law that you want to be practicing in? Like, I know I've got a friend who works she's a tax lawyer, for example. And so she does all the federal budget review, and there's a lot of information that she shares with me. And I say to her the same. How did you decide to get into that area of law?
Yes, out of all areas, tax. But I take my hat off to tax lawyers, because that area of law is always forever changing, and there's so much to it, and that they would be like some of the smartest lawyers out there at the moment. So hats off to her. But look, I feel for me, it was always ingrained within me to go into property, and it starts, I think, with my father. So my father has always been in the building industry in different capacities. Started off very young as a bricklayer, did that for many, many years, and then became a construction manager following that, and started working for his own business. And so I was always shown property. Property was always a discussion in the household, whether it's his day at work, whether it's, let's go for a drive and see this job that I've done. So that I think from young, I've always developed through my father an appreciation for property and what it is and what goes into it. And so with that, I think that's what's been instilled in me over a long period of time. And then, with my schooling, I went into, I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. Fell into doing a Bachelor of Business, or a diploma and certificate for business. Pulled my socks up and got the highest grades at that time, which gave me an early offer into Victoria University to do a Bachelor of Business, specialising in HR. There were some law subjects in that course, which I excelled at and I really enjoyed. And so that, with my existing appreciation for property, it sort of felt like a really natural fit to be in property law.
Oh, so interesting. That's so interesting.
We got Shireen's given us a love heart. I don't know why she's given us a love heart. Maybe she loves property, or she loves Melissa, or maybe a bit of both. But I suppose, how do you get a love for? I mean, is the property stuff? Is it? A lot of people get into properties because they want to have a wealth thing. Some people get into property because they want somewhere to live. Some people get into property, because, they love building the property, you know what I mean? So do you mix with all sort of three people? Is that the sort of three clients you've got?
I've got all walks of life, Mark. It's, I get, every day, and I love dealing with everyday people, because they have such an appreciation for what I do, and they're so forever thankful when you're changing their life with you're settling their property. But I deal with lots of individuals, couples, families, self-managed super funds, commercial clients, you name it. It's all sort of walks of life that come through with very different needs and different profiles.
And you've probably been asked this question a lot lately. The two questions I'm thinking of is, one, what are you seeing as the common clients that are coming through in the property market, and how things are trending, well, let's say the last year, with post-COVID, with interest rates continuing to rise. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, the market sentiment has changed.
Yeah,
I would say it's not doom and gloom forever, though. There are predictions going into next year where same time next year it's going to look a lot brighter.
Good to know. Okay.
Yeah, good to know. So that's what I'm hearing on the grapevine with a lot of my referral contacts. So and a lot of brokers, because I know quite a few, and that's been the prediction. But yeah, COVID created an unnatural market shift with property. We haven't seen going into springtime is meant to be the most hottest time for property transactions across Victoria, and we're not seeing it like it was 2 years ago, for example. And I'm hearing it a lot from real estate agents, and it's just this unnatural storm that we have to weather, unfortunately, as a result of COVID. And like you say, the interest rate hikes to deal with inflation, where I question whether that's the right approach. But, you know, yeah, it's changed the market sentiment. It's made people a bit more hesitant. People are probably more conscious of trying to time the market for when is the right time to sell, when is the right time to buy. You know, you've got the added pressure of serviceability of loans. I'm seeing a lot of people come to me saying, hey, yep, I want your services, but I might review a contract for them, for example, that they're for a property that they're interested in buying. But then I get a call and they say, hey, Mel, look, I mean, I really wanted this property, but I actually haven't met serviceability of my loan. And what people might not know, and this fully steps into more of the finance space, but this is just what I hear from a lot of brokers that I connect with, is that a lot of the banks apply like a 3% buffer on serviceability. So what that means is if the interest rate's 6%, they'll assess whether you can actually afford the loan, not on a 6% interest rate, but on a 9% interest rate. Right? And so we really need to start seeing that buffer go down so that there's a better chance for people to meet that serviceability to get their loans. So there's that pressure as well that I'm seeing. But on the flip side, it's not forever. A lot of people are predicting, like I said, this time next year it will be a different story. And this is probably more most important to people wanting to sell as well, that you know, there are better times coming for sure, because we rode the wave of COVID for 2 years or so, and now we're coming out of it from the other side. I don't think it's ever a good idea to time the market, because if you think about it, if you wait till a better time to step into the market, things appreciate over time. So what might be a deal now might not necessarily be a deal going into next year. So you've got to think of it from that perspective as well. But look,
what about in terms of that? I've had quite a few people ask me, and I've just been placed in this situation myself. And Julio, you may also be able to relate. And when Mark jumps on air, he also may be able to comment. Those in the rental situation, who in the rental housing situation, I'll ask you a question from that commercial side in a second. But you know, rental prices increased, but also from being on a long-term lease, like where I have been, to a month, because, you know, you think, well, are they looking to sell? Yes, probably. And so they don't want, you know, tenants to be locked in for a long-term lease, and they're waiting till the market to settle down and then to sell. So have you seen that come up too? Because I've heard, you know, obviously everything increasing, and you sort of think from both parties, you know, from the tenants who are living in the property to the owners, and what's the best fit.
I've seen lots of different scenarios involving tenants, whether it's from, you know, rental increases hitting the roof. It's unfair for both tenants and landlords alike. Because on one hand, you've got these rental increases, but the landlords are doing it to try and combat the increase in interest. Exactly. And what we're going to start seeing now over this next half of the year is people on those fixed interest rates that they went into a year or two ago at the 1.99% or 2% that are going to be lifted within the next half of the year. They're going to be met with like a 5.5 or 6 or whatever the case might be. It is huge. It's more than double. Their interest is just more than doubled, just like that. And so they're like, well, some people might be strapped as a result of that. And where do they turn? Where are they going to get more income? Where is that income accessible? It's going to be through the rental. And so the landlord is in an awkward position to begin with, but then so is the tenant. And so it's it's an unfair scenario, unfortunately, for everyone.
Mark, Julio, have you sort of noticed or heard similar stories in terms of, you know, like that?
Well, you know, I'm wondering about our audience, whether we've got any comments or questions from the audience that are struggling with the interest rates and property, or thinking about buying a property. Whether there's got any questions from for Melissa. Melissa's got a lot of information, and it is quite an interesting area at the moment. And I suppose it's interesting what you hear, isn't it, Melissa? Because I heard that property values are going to be going down in 2025. There's going to be a sort of a reset, but I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thing about whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market, or it's sort of time to be on hold.
Yeah, it goes back to that
is it a time to buy, sell, or not do anything?
I think it's a time to buy. My opinion is a time to buy. Again, because once interest rates start to once the interest rates start to stabilise, aka the Reserve Bank of Australia doesn't come out and keep increasing those interest rates, once that starts to settle, people start to get a bit more confident and they'll step into the market.
That's true.
At this point in time, you've got a lot of people that are a bit uncertain, which can impact demand. And don't forget supply. Well, this is probably stepping into more of a commercial discussion as opposed to law, but the market is dictated by supply and demand. That is a very simple concept. It's supply and demand. And you're at a point in time where you've got a lot of uncertainty in the market with buyers' confidence going down, which means that there may be less people at auctions, less people making offers, which means you haven't got that competition surrounding you.
Very true.
Depending on the property, of course, but compare it to a time where years ago you've had spring as being the hottest season every year, to now this unique situation where it's that may not necessarily be the case. So I think it's absolutely a great time to buy. You can get some really good deals because particularly in the Victorian market, I look at realestate.com.au on a daily basis just because of my love for property, and I'm just looking, and my partner and I want to get something, a property by the end of this year. And so we're looking around, and I'm seeing properties that were advertised 4 months ago still up there.
Yeah, okay. Slow market.
So we're in a market where, you might be in a better bargaining position with less competition in comparison to previous years. So it's something to think about.
Very interesting. Melissa, what about from the commercial side of things? My colleagues and I were sort of saying, not only today, but comes up in regular communication where you've got large organisations in the whole work from home situation, and, obviously large organisations where they don't even require staff to be present in the office anymore. If they've got these large spaces where, they've maybe been paying rent or they've downsized. What advice or questions do you see coming up there, and from that commercial market and the sector's changing a wee bit?
Yeah, particularly in the legal industry. There's pros and cons with working remotely. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people work more remotely now more than ever. We're seeing a lot of companies being adaptable to that hybrid working model where they've got people coming in part-time into the office, people coming in, people being able to work from home. Then you've got companies that are just allowing people to work from home full stop. And the upside of that is that their overheads get reduced quite a bit because no longer need for an office. The hybrid working model is also great because it gives you that balance of being able to work from the comfort of your home and also being able to have that connection with your teammates going into the business, and even being able to have that accessibility of expertise by your senior peers that you don't necessarily have that when you're working at home. It's a bit different. So I support both, and I'm seeing, there's definitely a shift there. Whether it's a big shift, I'm open to question about that, particularly in the legal industry. There are still a lot of law firms, probably even the bigger ones, that everyone has to come back to work straight away. COVID's over, let's all go back. Whether that comes from a place of giving them, again, that accessibility to other senior lawyers that they wouldn't necessarily have the convenience of working at home, or whether it comes from a bit more of a negative place where they don't necessarily trust their peers if they're working from home. I'm not sure. For some firms,
what about clients that you were working with, both on that residential side of things and commercial side of things, do you have sort of set, questions that you're seeing quite commonly coming through with your role, or what are you seeing on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis at the moment?
I see. I mean, for me, the sorts of queries I get, there's hasn't really been too much of a shift outside of what I usually get anyway. Whether it's questions about, what's the timing at which I need to be making an offer. I've noticed this or that in the contract. I'm not sure what it means. I want to get a building inspection done. When's the right time to do that? So that's the sort of, that's just an example of some of the queries I get.
Yeah.
COVID hasn't really changed that in any way. I feel like people are being a little bit more pickier about what they're buying. I've noticed they're a bit more pickier. And I think it's probably because we have a low amount of stock on the market at the moment compared to previous years. So there's less appealing properties. So people are sort of
being more selective,
being more selective, whether it's because they want to or they've got no choice to.
Do you going back onto like business model and looking at businesses that are buying into a company sort of thing, do you find that companies are starting to stray away from buying businesses due to the fact that no one's actually working in offices? So is there a need for them to actually invest in that side?
As in, are people steering away from acquiring businesses because they don't have staff working?
No, more to if you invest in a property, say for instance an office block, and you've got individuals or your workers to use the office block, but everybody's working from home. Do you find that they want to downsize the size of their business model as in office space compared to what they used to be?
I think definitely I don't see as many people buying offices, full stop. I don't see that many at all, in fact. And I think you're right in the sense that because of these hybrid working models and remote working models, there's no need for many people. And, and some people, I can imagine would be buying property but not necessarily really needing the premises that might be rented out. They may fulfill the lease once it ends and then say, well, we don't need it anymore,
Did you notice a shift, or have you been noticing a shift, Melissa? We're sort of talking off air about the western suburbs and the growth of where you grew up and where I'm based, and businesses are booming around these areas. Whereas when I'm going into the city for work, you see every second office lease. So
I totally agree. I totally agree. There's heaps of like inner city office spaces that are just. I see even in like places that are surrounding the city towards the east, like Brunswick, Collingwood. I'm seeing lots of offices where it's full lease. But I have noticed that as well in the West. There's heaps of people out there bustling.
Definitely.
I'm just trying to think of what might be the factors that are influencing that in the West in particular. Maybe it's because, people are living closer to where they work in the West.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. Yeah.
It's more cost effective for them as well. So people go, let's open up somewhere close by. You've also got, suburban restaurants, cafes, and, off the back of COVID, everyone's keen to get back into the hospitality sector. People that are experienced in or had businesses during COVID that may not have been successful because of COVID. Maybe it's a little bit of that as well. Keen to know your thoughts.
Very, very interesting.
Hey, we're getting into the second half hour. I'm sorry about I've been a bit patchy because the internet here is up and down like a yo-yo. Julio and I bought a lovely little device that we thought would fix it, but obviously it hasn't fixed it. But Melissa, it's great listening to you and all your great insights into the property sector. I'm really keen to learn about you, though, and how you're sort of navigating being a young business person, how you're handling your business, how you handle the ups and downs, the good times, the bad times, a bit about yourself personally. How are you navigating these times in uncertain situations? Do you have a mentor, or, what tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, look, you never quite stop learning. And for me, I'm always learning. I have a hunger for learning. So, you're always going to go through challenges as a business owner. You never stop. And I've got, like I said before, I have a young business. So I'm very hands-on with trying to grow that, because we do have a vision in growing the business into more of a national brand in the next 5 years. So we're very conscious of what our purpose and vision is in the business, and working towards that. Some days is long hours, but I have a passion for what I do and I love it. Always I'm learning, and you discover a lot about yourself as well along the way. I find you discover a level of resilience that you never thought you had. When I was working in private practice, and you're developing on your own personal skill sets. It's been really amazing mental, like, mindset training, and you kind of either sink or swim when you get faced with the challenges that you face as a growing business owner, whether it's from marketing, whether it's from staffing. It's not what happens, it's how we deal with it that matters. And the starting point is always mindset. And my mindset has developed by way of just my experience with dealing with challenges. It's been through the insights of others. I mean, I've had an amazing business coach at one point, Mark Ainsworth from K2I. And over the time that I had him as my business coach, he was amazing at training me with mindset. So a really good business coach can often help you if you're a small business owner.
Sorry to interrupt. When you say mindset, what sort of tips would he give you? I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's more about mindset in terms of how you would overcome challenges, and mindset in the sense of not just sitting there and thinking, because I find that before getting a lot of advice from business coaches and learning myself on how to deal with a lot of business challenges, I would always find myself just overthinking all the time and nothing kind of getting done. Not saying nothing getting done, but I would be fearful of taking steps towards growing my business. I'd suffer like a mental block, because I'm worried about the risk associated with taking certain steps. And a lot of us fall into that trap as business owners, because when we start earning income, especially in an environment where it's not stable, you're not in stable employment, you're learning. You're always learning, and you're always trying to hustle for your income, so to speak. You are worried, like you see your bank balance go up, you want to keep it, you don't want to reinvest because you're worried about your bank balance draining. And it's those thoughts that got in the way initially. And then having a really amazing business coach like him and learning from others, I just sort of snapped out of that. And started to be a bit more like Maverick, don't think, just do kind of approach. Don't think, just do, just be Maverick. And I still think that way in my head, just be Maverick. With what I do. And I said to myself, right, I had to reevaluate, the areas of my life that were really important and where I wanted to see myself in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And really always conscious of that and working towards that. Because at the end of the day, you want to see yourself earning a certain amount of income. And I had to rethink and reprogram myself to go, right, what do I want to see myself earning month on month? How am I going to get there? What am I going to have to do?
Making some sort of tangible actions and setting the goals, setting the actions.
Absolutely massive and immediate action. Absolutely massive and immediate action. That is what I've learned from Mark. And so if you just think that way, things will get done and you'll start to see results in your business. And we always have to remember that yes, you can make income over time, but you have to, at some point, reinvest that money into your business and then see a return on investment on the other side. It needs to be calculated. It needs to be proper and informed decisions through, you obviously need to look at your financials as well and make sure that you've got purpose-driven decisions that you're making.
And obviously, you've got a fan here as well, saying he is proud of you, Melissa. You're a go-getter, so you're obviously very, very resilient and very driven. Julio,
thank you.
Have you ever had a business yourself, or have you had a coach or mentor?
Yes, I did. I had a coach in Sydney. So it was and also here in Melbourne, a friend of ours that me and Mark know, he took me through some, because mine was very technical. So I wanted to see his mind. He was an IT guru and had developed a very successful business here in Melbourne. So he actually developed, or was part of the development of the first 2YK bug software.
Oh, wow. There you go.
So he did really well for himself. So I want to pick his brains. I think that's the best thing to do is go and meet people that have actually made it for themselves and start analysing them and asking questions, because they're pretty happy to tell you, to be quite honest.
That's right. Be inquisitive. That's what I was saying about the point about learning. Just be inquisitive. Ask all the questions that you need to help yourself move forward. As lawyers, and for anyone that's tuning in that is or knows lawyers can attest to this, we are trained to overthink. We are trained to be hands-on with the work. We're trained to be over-analysers and to be really cautious and to be really risk-averse. And I've actually had to train myself out of that for the purpose of growing my business. And that took so much time. So I've got my mind to a point where I can tune into that when I need to and tune out of that.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So how do you find that the difference, like a conveyancer or a solicitor? What would be the major difference between the two, especially for people getting into real estate?
Really good question. A lot of people, I get this query a lot. I remember you asking, Callie, what were some of the queries that you get? One of the top ones is, well, okay, you're a property lawyer, but you're a conveyancer, right? Like, aren't they the same thing? It's really important to demystify that ambiguity. So if I can explain it in like the simplest way. So conveyancers, and I know lots of amazing ones, conveyancers are trained, qualified, and insured to bring the transaction to settlement. So for anyone that doesn't know what settlement is, it's the point in time that the property is actually transferred for paying the rest of the money to a seller. They are trained to specifically do that and that only. So that's what they're licensed to do. That's what they're insured to do and trained to do from their conveyancing course that they would have done to qualify themselves to be able to do that. So that's effectively a conveyancer. A solicitor, a property lawyer, on the other hand, yes, we can do that. That's fine. But our expertise extends us to doing more. So if things get complicated, if things get curly along the way where you're actually needing legal advice, a responsible conveyancer will tell you, I'm not actually insured or qualified to give you that advice, but I can refer you on to a property lawyer. Like myself, I have conveyancers that actually come up to me to help to assist their clients if they're needing advice, whether it's for the purpose of getting out of a contract or negotiating an outcome because of an issue that's arisen. Our expertise extends to not just getting you in, but sometimes getting you out and negotiating lots of other different outcomes. And also we're trained, qualified and insured to give legal advice and to represent you in certain situations as well. So the scope of what we can do is a lot greater. And our professional indemnity insurance allows us to do that as well.
So, yeah, and like you said, such a fascinating field. Well, for any of our viewers and listeners, if you've got any questions for Melissa, we'd love to hear from you. So type them up on the Facebook or on Instagram, or if you're watching later on as well. Melissa, as we start to, to think about, want you to think about those top 5 tips that you want to give our listeners and community members out there as well, like what you're seeing at the moment in your profession, and then also as a business owner yourself. And Melissa, you've kept this on the down low, but you tell me a bit about what you've been nominated for recently in your profession.
I was nominated for an award. We're thankful enough that we actually won it, and explain to you what the odds are, because we didn't. You hope to get it, but you don't quite envisage that you're going to get it until it happens, and then you have to slap yourself in the face and go, "Did that just happen?" So we were fortunate. I won the Sole Practitioner of the Year at the Lawyers Weekly Australian Law Awards. It's a countrywide award ceremony. It's, you get lots of lawyers and law firms that apply, thousands in some years that apply for that award. It's kind of like the mothership. And if I put it into perspective, they then shortlist it to about 360 odd firms or solicitors. And then from that, about 30, anywhere between 30 to 40 solicitors get an award for their respective categories. So being a young business owner, I was in the category of Sole Practitioner of the Year, and I was thankful that I won that award. So that's been really good. It complements our existing reputation. It gives us that extra level of credibility that people want to see in a law firm they engage for their conveyancing. So it's been a really good win for the business overall. And tips. You've asked about tips.
So Melissa, you're a gold medalist lawyer.
I wasn't the one that came up with the topic, the Matildas of Law. Okay. But I am trying to keep goals in my business as much as possible.
Yes. Yeah.
As we all are.
Now, speaking about kicking goals, if you can hear me, I'm sorry about the internet, but if you can hear me, we're going to go into your top 5 soon. And I don't know whether you're ready for that, guys, or whether you can hear me, but if you can hear me and it's working, we're going to go into the top 5, your top 5 goals, I suppose, or your top 5 points. Yes. Melissa, and congratulations on winning the award of the Lawyer of the Year, eh?
Thank you, Mark. No, I appreciate that. It's been fantastic to be recognised after a lot of hard work. So it's been good. But 5 tips. Look, I mean, I've probably got 5 or more, but I had to think about it because there's so many tips I can give, and the problem was not thinking of them. Just narrowing it down to 5 was a challenge. But okay, for people that are buying property, number one number one tip is, and especially if you're buying property for the first time, my God, make sure you get the contract looked over by a seasoned property lawyer, such as myself, before you buy, ideally, so that at least we can safeguard you to some extent. You want to know what you're getting into. It's not enough just to say it's pretty, send us the contract, this is the price, we've all agreed to the price, and go. We'd like to think it's that simple, but it's always important. Get the contract looked over. In Victoria, you've got a contract, and then you've got something called a Section 32 statement, which is effectively a document that discloses lots of different things about the property you're interested in by law. So we would look at all that and take red flags. And to see if there's anything that we think needs to be changed to manage your risk a lot better. So, that's another one rule. Very good, important tip, like the most important tip. So number 2.
Okay, now Julio's writing this down. Did you get that one, Julio? Or
I'm back now. I just lost my keyboard for a second. I have to get another keyboard. So sorry about that.
Okay.
So first one is
contract review. Get a contract review.
Get a contract review.
You've got to write that down, Julio.
Yeah.
Very important. Everyone should write it down, actually. Get a contract review in big letters.
Okay.
And then the second tip I would say, another really basic one, get a building and pest inspection done on a property, especially putting the land to one side. If you're buying land, you don't need that. But if there's a dwelling on the property, if there's some sort of structure that comes with the property, it's always important, regardless of how old or new it is, get a building and pest inspection done. Ideally before you buy. If you want to kind of manage your cost around that, it may be a good idea just to gauge from the real estate agent if the vendor would be prepared to accept your offer before investing in that next step of getting a building and pest inspection done, just so at least you know you're in with the chance, so that you're not spending your money on a property you don't have a chance with. Okay, so getting a building and pest inspection done before you buy is really essential, because obviously it informs you about the structural integrity of the property. But the report, and a good report, will have lots of photos and descriptions about about defects amongst the property. That can be used as a really good bargaining tool for you if you're buying, in terms of price. And I've seen a lot of people successfully use one to lower the price on what they're paying as a result of what they've discovered in a building report. But also, generally speaking, when you're buying a property in Victoria, if there's any damage that happens to the property before settlement, usually we would get the vendor to fix that up before settlement. If you've got a report that proves what the condition of the property was like before you bought it, you can prove that there's been a change that occurred after. In Victoria, you buy the property as it is, subject to everything that's wrong with it. So the only way you're going to get someone a vendor to fix anything is if there's any major damage or dilapidation that occurs before settlement. But but the onus is on you as a buyer to prove that change of condition. The best way to do that is getting a building and pest inspection report at the beginning, and taking lots of pictures yourself, lots of pictures of different parts of the property. Record your usage of appliances as well. And that should put you in good stead. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, council inquiries. I can't stress how important it is that when you find a property, call the council before you buy, just to find out if there's any investigations into non-compliant work that's been done at the property. If you walk into something and it looks like it's newly renovated, it looks pretty. But if you've got a pergola at the back that looks like it's been recently constructed, instantly give the council a call and just find out, has there been building permits and a certificate of final inspection issued for this structure or for whatever's happening in the property? Is there any record of any building permits? I wouldn't go into too much detail about what you're buying to the council, because you don't want to raise eyebrows if there is something non-compliant, because you effectively take the risk of the property from the day you buy it. But certainly make those inquiries, I guess, discussing it on a more general level with the council. Maybe just explaining to their building and planning department that, I'm looking at a property, it's in this area. I noticed there's this structure in it, or that this has been done. Just wondering, would a building permit need to be issued with the council? And then, the prerogative is yours if you want to give the address to find out if the property is specifically doesn't have any permits issued, or if there's any illegal works investigations underway, because you are the one that takes the liability for that from not settlement, from the contract date. So very important to make those inquiries. Even excuse me, calling the body corporate if you can, if it's a unit or an apartment, giving them a call, and the council, to discuss if there's any investigations into non-compliant combustible cladding, for example. You see a lot of that happening on buildings, on apartment buildings. So if you are buying into an apartment, it's always a good inquiry to make, because again, from the contract date, you become liable for the special levies that get issued if, let's say, the body corporate manager is chasing the builder to fix those works. If there's any costs they have to incur to issue proceedings against the builder, you'll bet you and every other lot owner in that development will pay extra levies, and that's a year-on-year cost you want to avoid if you can. So council inquiries can be the difference between whether you buy something or not. The other really practical tip I have, which is tip number 4, is when you make an offer on a property, don't sign the contract as part of making your offer, at least not until you've got legal advice on the contract. So what I see a lot of people do, and it's not their fault, it's because no one's told them, is I'll get the call from a customer and they'll be like, I made an offer on a property. Whenever I hear the word offer, the next question I ask is, okay, you made an offer. Did you sign the contract as part of making that offer? And probably about 50 to 60% of the time I hear the word yes, I did. Or I will hear no. I will hear no. I signed a document.
Oh, no.
I don't think it was the contract, but I signed a document.
Yeah.
And the agent just says, no, this is just your offer. And I ask them, does the document say sale of contract of real estate on the top of it? And they'll say, yes, it did. And I'll say, okay, so you signed the contract. So, and then they say,
that's a smart real estate agent, just going to say.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. So a really ethical agent will tell you what you're signing, will actually go through the process properly. But I guess the rule of thumb is don't make an offer until you've at least got the contract reviewed. If you want to make an offer, do it in an email, mark up the contract as much as you want, just don't sign it. You know, if the agent wants the contract submitted as part of making your offer, put your terms in it, just don't sign it until you've at least got the contract reviewed by a seasoned solicitor like myself.
Yeah.
And then sign it if you feel you'd like to. So that's a really important tip. A lot of people get stuck into that trap. And then tip number 5, we already kind of went into the discussion about don't time the market. That's never a good idea because things always appreciate over time, like properties appreciate over time. But I want to at least throw in a tip about ways to improve the working relationship you have with staff. I know that this is now divulging into a topic away from property, but I wanted to mention it because we did have a bit of discussion about the workplace and the shifts that we're seeing into people working more remotely. And I get some feedback from other small business owners that say, look, it's becoming a challenge to create a really great culture with the business because everyone's working from home. And that really shouldn't stop a business from creating a really good culture, because a good culture creates better mental health amongst your peers. And it gets people feeling more motivated to work for you, and the productivity increases as a result. So one of the things that I do, if I can give it as a helpful tip with my team, is every Monday morning we do what we call a whiteboard session. So a whiteboard session effectively that's like the business session that goes for about half an hour to 40 minutes about what have we got on, where are they at, like what settlements have we got, where are they all at, like what are we doing, what's the latest status, do you need to raise issues with me about anything at this point on a Monday morning. And then every day we'll have like a 15-minute whiteboard session, a water cooler session. And we call it a water cooler session because it's kind of mirrors like that idea of going to the water cooler to fill up your drink and gas bag about whatever you want with your colleague. So we kind of took that concept with it, and we just use that as a 15-minute like check-in to say, hey, how's everyone going? Is everyone okay? Is anyone struggling with anything? You know, just as a really casual, just hi, hello, check-in. And then just to make sure everyone's feeling okay. If there's anything they need to raise, they can raise it with me. And then we do like a social club Zoom on a Thursday afternoon just to gas bag about whatever we want. We can be eating, we can be having a coffee together. So we kind of try to mirror that whole idea of as if you were working in an office together, like what the exchanges be like. And we just find that those touch points are really great because we're just connecting with each other on a daily basis. So communication is always key when you're working remotely, and just having an open book policy with your staff, making them feel safe. I've come from work environments where I've felt completely unsafe. Excuse me. And working in private practice, it's all about how long you work and billable hours. A lot of mental health wasn't really addressed. And so, and you'd always cop that excuse of, if you wanted to knock on the door of your practice manager's office and say, look, I'm struggling, I've had them turn around and say, well, you're not resilient enough, or there must be something that you're doing that's causing that, or, and this is a beauty, you're not emotionally intelligent enough. It stings, doesn't it? So
it does.
It just makes you feel really unsafe. So with my business, I've got a couple of really amazing girls, and between the three of us, we have 40 years of conveyancing experience, and they have been amazing. And I always have an open book policy with them that they can come up to me and tell me anything. If they're struggling, we'll find a way to make things work. Whether something that in their personal life or whatnot. So as a result, they feel really secure. They feel like they could come to me, and it's been a great working environment. So hopefully that tip helps whoever's listening. And they're my 5.
Great tips.
Yep.
All right.
So good. Mark, not sure if you are with us or not, but I just want to say, Julio, what was the tip that you like the best from Melissa? Because I know
Me.
mine.
Actually, one that I didn't think about, which was number 4. When you make an offer on the property, don't sign the contract until you get advice.
Yep.
So that came through really loud and clear. So how about
That's
yourself?
a really practical tip.
I agree. That was mine too. It's like signing a contract. Yep.
Yeah, when you're in the market, the first person a lot of people interact is the agent, and then they follow the advice of the agent. And there's a lot of agents that I know, a lot of ethical agents that I prefer to deal with. But then you've got some unethical ones in the profession, unfortunately, who sort of ruin it for everyone else. And a lot of people rely on the word of the agent when they say, yeah, it's okay to sign this document, without really knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah, I think that was, hands down, great tip, and one that I will not forget. Yeah. And also for I just want to encourage any community members and listeners and viewers out there, also for those who are renting too. I would strongly, strongly advise, and Melissa, you might be able to add to it to this, in terms of just the new policies around with property legal status around heating and insulation and everything, where unfortunately many owners, both residential and commercial, trying to cut that time with property agents and getting people to sign contracts as well, or just saying, here you go, sign a document, and it's a contract. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Requirements has been changed, and that just reminds me about another one where, if you've got, and this is probably a bit more niche, but if you've got rooming, you're considering converting a property into a rooming house, the laws around that will change from February next year, where there's a lot more requirements that you need to comply with to convert your house legally into a rooming house. So just something to be aware of.
Well, so great to have you on the show, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us, and just congratulations again for your award. I think you are an amazing practitioner, lawyer, conveyance, like a business owner. So thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you on the show tonight.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mark and Julio. It's been amazing, and I love educating, and it's just been a joy to be on and be able to share my tips, and hopefully I've helped our community in some way or another to put them in a better position when they're stepping into the property market.
Absolutely. And as someone says, as Matthew has said, go Melissa. Absolutely.
Thanks, Matthew. I know Matthew.
Go, Melissa. Sorry about the internet tonight, Melissa.
He's gone again.
And he's gone again. Oh, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
See ya.
See ya.
thank you for joining us this evening. Tune in every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. or watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and follow us on LinkedIn and other social media.